Welcome to this explainer. We're going to do a really deep, profound book breakdown today. Because let's face it, in our hyper-fast modern world, it is incredibly easy to just feel overwhelmed. We are constantly bombarded by distractions, endless daily anxieties, and sometimes really profound personal suffering. It can genuinely feel like we're just treading water, right? But what if the solutions to this modern mental chaos aren't just sitting on the new releases shelf of psychology books, but are actually rooted in ancient, timeless wisdom? Today, we are going to look at how we can anchor our minds and find true purpose by taking the absolute best of modern psychological frameworks and combining them with classical Islamic principles.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's a fascinating question. Can modern Western psychology and 1400-year-old Islamic teachings actually team up to solve our modern chaos? We're going to unpack two massive pillars of modern thought today. First, Viktor Frankl's incredible insights on human suffering, and second, Shane Parrish's modern strategies for mental clarity. But we're not stopping there. As you'll see, we are going to look at these exact concepts through a 1400-year-old lens to discover how Western psychology and classical Islamic teachings don't just overlap, they actually complete each other. It's a real game changer.
So kicking things off with Part 1, Viktor Frankl and the Search for Meaning, Surviving the Darkest Times Through Purpose.
So, the crucial point here starts with Frankl himself. He was a psychiatrist who survived the literal, unimaginable horrors of Auschwitz. He lost his wife, his parents, his brother. It's unthinkable. Yet, while he was suffering in the concentration camps, he noticed something that completely changed the field of psychology. He realized that the prisoners who survived weren't necessarily the biggest or physically strongest ones. No, they were the ones who held on to a deep personal meaning. He took this and built a psychological framework called logotherapy, which literally means healing through meaning. Frankl basically taught that we, as humans, are fundamentally wired to pursue purpose. His big argument was that our ultimate, absolute human freedom, the one thing nobody can ever take from you no matter what, is your ability to choose your attitude in any situation. They can strip you of everything, right? But they absolutely cannot strip you of how you choose to respond.
Now look at how perfectly this maps onto classical faith. On the left side here, we have Frankl's secular realization. Suffering has meaning, and it demands that we choose our attitude. Now jump over to the right side. We have the Islamic concepts of sabr, which is this deep, unbreakable patience, and tawakkul, which is complete reliance on God. Islam has literally been teaching for over 1,000 years that suffering isn't just some random unlucky accident. It's actually a profound spiritual mechanism. Just think of the story of Prophet Ayub. You might know him in the West as Job. He lost his health, his wealth, his entire family, but he maintained this unwavering, patient reliance on his Creator. The exact psychological resilience Frankl discovered in the 20th century? Yeah, that's been a total cornerstone of Islamic spiritual practice for 14 centuries.
Just look at this verse. And we will surely test you, but give good tidings to the patient. It completely mirrors Frankl's idea that suffering has intrinsic meaning, but then it elevates it to this whole other divine level. In this worldview, your pain isn't a pointless cosmic joke. It is a highly specific, customized test. And for the people who exercise that ultimate freedom to choose their attitude, the ones who choose patience, there are massive, divine rewards waiting. It just totally removes the victim mentality and replaces it with clear, divine purpose.
Let's move to Part 2 and see how this builds into Shane Parrish and clear thinking, finding clarity in a chaotic, distracted world.
Okay, so Frankl helps us survive the absolute darkest of times, but what about the noise of a random Tuesday? Shane Parrish argues that our modern world is practically designed to make us react rather than actually think. And he points out 4 primary enemies that are constantly clouding our judgment. First up, emotion. Letting a completely temporary feeling dictate a permanent life choice. Then there's ego, where we care way more about looking right than actually being right. Third is social pressure, where we just cave and follow the crowd instead of sticking to our own principles. And finally, inertia. Just that powerful, lazy habit of resisting change and doing absolutely nothing. Make no mistake, every single day, these 4 enemies are actively trying to hijack your focus and sabotage your decisions.
So how do we fight back? Well, Parrish tells us we need to cultivate what he calls guardian mode. Most of the time, we operate in soldier mode, right? We're just aggressively defending our fragile egos. But guardian mode is different. It's a highly disciplined state of mind. It's like having your own internal watchtower. When you're in guardian mode, your one goal is to protect your objective thinking and safeguard your best decisions from those 4 inner enemies we just looked at. It is literally the ultimate tool for keeping razor-sharp focus when the world around you is just screaming for your attention.
And this brilliantly illustrates the overlap we're talking about today. On the left, we've got Parish's Guardian mode, protecting your decisions from your own ego. On the right, we have the incredibly deep Islamic concepts of taqwa and muraqabah. Now, taqwa is often translated as fear of God, but actually, scratch that. It's really more of a state of constant, protective, mindful awareness. And muraqabah is this deep realization that God is always watching you. When you truly have taqwa, you naturally filter out your ego, your wild emotions, and all that social pressure. Why? Because you are calibrating your thoughts to a much, much higher standard.
There's this remarkably powerful anecdote where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, pointed directly to his chest, right at his heart, and said 3 times, "Taqwa is here." That is huge. It means the ultimate form of regulating your mind and your emotions doesn't just happen in some abstract intellectual space, it happens right there in the spiritual heart. Islam has been teaching its own version of guardian mode for centuries, just by telling us to actively guard our eyes, our ears, and our thoughts from useless distractions so we can keep our hearts pure and focused.
Which brings us to part 3, the ultimate synthesis. 1,400 years of comprehensive Islamic psychology.
When we synthesize all of these frameworks together, it just clicks. Both Frankl and Parish empower human agency. They're all about the power of your choices. But Islam comes in and gives those modern frameworks a divine center. You aren't just finding meaning just for the sake of feeling better. You are finding meaning in the pleasure of your Creator. You aren't just trying to think clearly so you can be more productive at work. You're thinking clearly to protect your own soul. Honestly, modern psychology is kind of just catching up to what the Quran laid out centuries ago. Look at this verse from Surah Al-Hashar. Think, O you who have intellect. Islam is absolutely not a faith of blind, unthinking emotion. It commands humanity to use its brain, to reflect deeply, to govern its feelings, and seek absolute clarity. Having a clear, disciplined mind is literally a divine command.
Moving into part 4, an Islamic alternative reading list. Here are a few classical and modern texts that parallel everything we're discussing.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that if you want to explore the ideas from Frankl or Parish, you don't have to just stick to Western literature. We have this massive, rich tradition of Islamic texts to build that exact same mental resilience. Step 1. Start with La Tahzan or Don't Be Sad by Eid al-Qarni. It's incredibly accessible, super hopeful, and it perfectly parallels Frankl's whole search for meaning in the middle of hardship. Step 2. Move on to Reclaim Your Heart by Yasmin Mogahed. This one is such a game changer for our modern generation. It offers amazing emotional grounding when you're just feeling lost. And finally, step 3, we bring in the heavy hitter, Ibn al-Qayyim's classical masterpiece, The Disease and the Cure, which is basically for deep, systematic reprogramming of your entire mind and soul.
Seriously, let's zoom in on that third book for a second. The parallels between The Disease and the Cure and Parish's clear thinking will blow your mind. Centuries ago, Ibn al-Qayyim systematically identified our internal enemies: the ego, unchecked emotions, spiritual diseases. But instead of just tossing out a few productivity life hacks, he prescribed direct, actionable cures using knowledge and prayer. He literally wrote the manual on how to reprogram your heart and purify your soul to get that ultimate, unbreakable mental clarity. It's guardian mode, but elevated to a complete spiritual art form.
Finally, part 5, reflection and action. Let's talk about applying these frameworks to your life right now. We've covered a lot of ground today, right? From the darkest horrors of the 20th century to the constant buzzing distractions of the 21st, all grounded in timeless spiritual wisdom. But look, all this information is totally useless if we don't apply it. Whatever unique, heavy trial you were dealing with right this second, I really want you to internalize this comforting truth from the Quran. Verily, with every hardship comes ease. That is a divine promise. The pain you are feeling right now, it has an expiration date, and it holds the very seeds of your own growth. It perfectly bridges our human reality of suffering with our pursuit of real clarity and peace. So, I want to leave you with a final, vital question to chew on. What meaning can you extract from your current struggle? And despite what your ego or your emotions are screaming at you right now, what is one clear, objective decision you will make today based on that meaning? I highly encourage you to grab a journal right now and physically write your answers down. Take back your clarity, find your meaning. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.